On November 14, 2025, after spending more than 17 years on death row, Stephen Corey Bryant was executed by firing squad at Broad River Correctional Institution in South Carolina. Bryant, considered a serial killer responsible for 3 victims, faced his final sentence that evening. In this video, I'll tell you what happened that day, what his last meal was, and what his final words were before he died. In October 2004, when he was just 23 years old, Stephen Corey Bryant unleashed an 8-day violent rampage across rural areas of Sumter County, South Carolina. That string of crimes terrified the entire community and 2 decades later led him straight to death row. Bryant enjoyed fishing and often spent time at a nearby river. That same night, October 8th, without any apparent reason, he shot a man who was fishing there, hitting him in the back. The victim, 56-year-old Clinton Brown, survived despite his severe injuries and managed to drive himself to a hospital. That attack would be just the prelude to a cold and calculated campaign of terror that would soon paralyze the region. The next day, October 9, 2004, Bryant went out with his friend and co-worker, 36-year-old Clifton Gainey. They were close. They fished together and spent time around each other's families. That day, under the pretext of going out to buy beer, Bryant used a stolen gun to shoot Gainey in the head, killing him instantly and leaving his body on a rural road. 2 days later, on October 11th, Bryant broke into the home of 62-year-old Willard Teitchen, a man he didn't know who lived in a remote part of the county. He used the same method he had already relied on, knocking on the door, pretending he was having car trouble, and earning the victim's trust. Once inside, he shot Teitchen 9 times. But his brutality didn't end there. After killing him, Bryant burned the eyes of the body with lit cigarettes, an act of sadism meant to degrade his victim even after death. While he was ransacking Teitchen's home, taking jewelry, power tools, and other valuables, the phone started ringing. It was Teitchen's daughter, Kimberly Dees, calling from another state. No one answered the first call. On the second try, an unfamiliar voice finally picked up. When someone finally answered the phone, Kimberly heard a man ask, "Who is this?" She told him she was the daughter of Willard Teitchen. What came next froze her in place. "You can't talk to him," the voice said. "I'm the prowler." Then came the most chilling confession of all. "I killed him 3 hours ago," followed by a cold, mocking laugh that ended abruptly with the click of the line, "going dead." The brutality didn't stop there. In an act of absolute contempt for life and the law, Bryant used Teitchen's blood as if it were paint. He wrote taunting messages on the walls of the house. "Victim 4 in 2 weeks, catch me if you can," along with multiple repetitions of "catch me if you can." Before leaving, he placed candles around the body, turning the scene into a kind of macabre altar. Exactly 2 days later, on October 13, 2004, Bryant killed again. This time, his victim was 35-year-old Christopher Earl Burgess, whom he encountered at a convenience store in rural Sumter County. They knew each other casually. After chatting for a bit, they walked out of the store together, and Bryant offered him a ride. On a lonely stretch of road, Bryant pulled out a gun and shot Burgess twice, once in the head and once in the chest. He left Burgess's body in a ditch. Less than 2 hours later, a hunter passing through the area found the remains and notified authorities. Later that same day, Bryant was arrested at his girlfriend's house by local police. Investigators quickly gathered solid evidence linking him to all the crimes officers found: stolen firearms, items taken from the victims' homes, and clothing matching descriptions given by witnesses. On October 14, 2004, Stephen Corey Bryant was formally charged with 3 counts of murder, 2 counts of aggravated burglary, 2 counts of unlawful possession of a firearm, 1 count of armed robbery, and 1 count of arson. Later investigations even suggested that additional charges could be filed related to the burglaries he committed during his rampage. Even after being taken into custody, his behavior remained violent. In October 2005, while awaiting trial at the Sumter Lee Regional Detention Center, Bryant brutally attacked a correctional officer. He punched the officer repeatedly, even after he was already on the ground and defenseless. The sentencing phase began on September 2, 2008, before a South Carolina judge. The defense argued that Bryant should not receive the death penalty because of his personal history. As in many capital cases, his attorneys focused on portraying a background of deep trauma and long-term abuse that, according to them, South Carolina's institutions failed to address in time. On September 11, 2008, after hearing all the testimony and evidence presented by both sides, the jury found Stephen Corey Bryant guilty of capital murder and sentenced him to death. He received the death penalty for the murder of Willard Teachin, committed during a burglary, and life sentences for the killings of Clifton Gainey and Christopher Burgess, along with nearly 100 additional years for his other crimes. Over the next 16 years and 9 months, Bryant exhausted every legal remedy available within the U.S. judicial system. His attorneys, some court-appointed and others working pro bono, most of them opponents of capital punishment, filed multiple appeals based on various legal arguments attempting to overturn or delay his sentence. On October 14, 2025, the United States Supreme Court rejected his final appeal, clearing the way for his execution. A few days later, South Carolina Attorney General Kristen Clarke filed a motion to set an execution date. The order was delivered to Bryant on October 17, 2025. Under state law, the date must be scheduled for the fourth Friday after the order is received, which set November 14, 2025 as the execution date. On October 31, 2025, exactly 14 days before his execution, Bryant was formally notified of his right to choose. He deliberately selected death by firing squad. With that decision, he became the third inmate in South Carolina to opt for this method since the state resumed executions in September 2024. Stephen Corey Bryant spent his final days on death row without receiving any visits from family members. He spent that time almost entirely alone, with only occasional contact from prison staff and his spiritual advisor. Finally, the day of his execution arrived. On the morning of November 14, 2025, Bryant woke up at 4 a.m. He showered and received a visit from a spiritual counselor. As is standard procedure for executions by firing squad, he was also given sedatives to reduce his anxiety before the process. At 5:45 p.m., Bryant was taken from his cell to the execution chamber. At 5:50 p.m., he was secured to the execution chair with leather straps. The coroner placed the target on his chest directly over the heart, and a hood was placed over his head. The warden read the execution order aloud as witnesses took their places behind the bulletproof glass. At 6:10 p.m., the three shooters fired simultaneously without warning. 3.308 caliber rounds struck Bryant's torso in rapid succession. His body showed involuntary movements and reflexive sounds, but neurological death likely occurred within seconds. The coroner pronounced him dead at 6:20 p.m. Stephen Corey Bryant did not utter any final words. And that's today's video. What do you think? Do you believe this was a just execution or not? Let me know in the comments.